Okay, so now for our next one, let's head over to Evansville, Indiana. And here we go. This one comes from William K. First off, I'm a big fan of your channel and podcast. I think you have wonderful theories for lawn care and genuinely care about helping your lawn care brethren. I'm going on year 2 of home ownership in Indianapolis, and during this first year, I hired a local lawn care company to restore my life to my yard as I learned more on the subject to do it myself eventually. I have applied the tools and methods you teach and will be taking on my lawn domination next season with the aid of your manual and many others. I have created my logbook and have done the calculations for what I believe will be a great start to taking ownership. But my question, which I have not seen much discussion on, is that I have a pond that butts up against my backyard, and in the literature and directions I do not see any advice other than beware of fertilizing too close to the water. In your experience, what would be a safe way to manage the lawn, seed, pesticides going up to that area, but will keep the wildlife safe and not create a swamp thing? I will be using Jonathan Green products this season due to the hefty discount I have at my local store. I think this would be a wonderful topic to be discussed on your show. William, bro, this is a great topic, and it's one I'm very passionate about. I'll tell you why in a minute, but the first thing I want to do is say congratulations on your home outside of Indy there. I lived in Indiana, the Hoosier State, for many years. I love Indiana. I loved living there, and I love my family. Now, I lived up in Northwest Indiana. You're down in Indianapolis, and that was where all the rich folk live. That's how I always looked at it, where we used to take the kids to see all kinds of things on government day. But either way, super congratulations, dude, on your house. And I think your strategy is super smart, man. You hire someone to take care of it now while you do that smart thing. You're like, all right, I'm going to learn. I'm going to watch what they do. I'm going to see what happens. I'm going to learn on my own. I'm going to educate myself. All the while, you're being observant of your lawn because you live there, right? Even though someone else is taking on the heavy lifting, and now you're ready to go. You're ready to do that. Man, I wonder how many of you out there in the audience are doing that same thing, and that's exactly why we're here. So super cool, dude. He's got his lawn journal going. He's doing his math. I love that. So let's talk about, though, what about waterways? So what's cool about this is, I live in Florida. As Jimmy Buffett will tell you, I'm from the land where the rivers meet the sea, or in my case, where the rivers meet the Gulf of Mexico. Born and raised on the west coast of Florida, in fact, in Pinellas County, Florida, St. Petersburg, Florida, which is a peninsula all on its own, surrounded by Tampa Bay on one side and the Gulf of Mexico on the other. So I understand what that's like, as well as now where I live is very close to the Manatee River. All of it, everything in our neighborhood drains to the Manatee River, which drains out into the Gulf. And then I have a retention pond or a lake behind me that has lots of beautiful wildlife in it, including a gator that I filmed, but many birds of prey that we've seen, including a bald eagle and multiple hawks and things like this. I hear owls out there. All kinds of cool fish. We have a lot of beautiful things, some beautiful cypress trees that really draw in some really beautiful wildlife, and they also draw in some wild pigs, which are not beautiful wildlife. But either way, I understand the idea of having something beautiful behind your house that you like, and you probably bought the house because of the pond view behind it, because that's a pretty thing to look at. I love sitting out back, drinking a cold brew, looking at my section of lawn back there, running my sprinklers, which I call my private water show, and then seeing my lake behind with the trees reflecting in the lake. It's beautiful, and I understand it, and you don't want to pollute and destroy that lake. So let me tell you a few things that I think, or a few pieces of advice that I'll give you. Now, the first thing is a lot of products, especially pesticides. Remember, pesticides are herbicides, they are fungicides, they are insecticides, they're miticides, termiticides. There's all these things, all the sides, those are all pesticides, okay? There are a lot of different ways to say that, but pesticides will typically tell you on the label how far away to keep from water in most cases. And it may even be in every case. Somebody can correct me. But I pulled out one of the fungicides, the Scott disease X that we were talking about earlier, and here it says environmental hazards. This pesticide is toxic to freshwater and estuarine marine fish and aquatic invertebrates. Do not apply directly to water. Runoff may harm aquatic organisms. Do not contaminate water when disposing of equipment. Wash water or rinsate. So you can see right there, they're telling you don't get this in waterways and body of water. Here we think about shrimp. These things can affect shrimp populations, and I love my Key West pinks. I love my Florida Gulf caught shrimp, fried shrimps. So that's something that you want to look at, right? So you definitely don't want those things getting anywhere in the water, near the water, on the water. Now, you're more talking about and referring to what I would believe fertilizers, and that's just as important. And those are not necessarily going to tell you how far away to keep from water, but they'll have some wording on there like, hey, don't throw this in the water. But how far away do you stay? And what's a good general rule of thumb for any of you that have a waterway either in your backyard or anything like that? So the first thing I want to do is I want to go to the Pinellas County ordinance. Now, Pinellas County, Florida, has an ordinance against fertilizing of nitrogen or phosphorus from June 1st all the way until September. We have it here in Manatee County, and most of Florida has it. It's called a fertilizer blackout period or a fertilizer ban. And the reason they had that is because we obviously have a lot of challenges here. If you guys read anything in the news about the red tide that was a problem here last year, I was affected by that, and that going through, it was bad. I couldn't go to the beach for a certain amount of times. Oh, poor baby, right? But just saying, it affects tourism, and it does hurt our economy in a way. Even when I was here and took some buddies out fishing, we had to go out fishing in another area, in another part of the land because of the red tide. So just saying, it affects all of us down here. And one of the ways that red tide is affected, or one of the reasons why red tide can become a factor, is if too much nitrogen or phosphorus or both get into the waterways. It can cause all kinds of imbalances in the ecosystem, which then can invite in the red tide, which is essentially an organism that kills all the living things. Now, there may be a lot of other reasons for these high amounts of nitrogen and phosphorus in the waterways. There are a lot of reasons for that, but we as homeowners, we as applicators do not want to contribute to that. So if there is another underlying problem, which you can tell I'm avoiding talking about in this podcast, but if there is another underlying problem, that's fine. Let legislation deal with that. Let the government take care of that. We as homeowners do our part by not adding to it. And so we adhere to the law. We adhere to the letter of the law during this fertilizer blackout period, which starts June 1st, and it's in most of Florida. But Pinellas County, I think, is probably the strictest. Seriously, they make Home Depot take a lot of these fertilizers off the shelf during this time of year. Now, Manatee County doesn't do that. You can still find full fertilizers on the shelf. They just let you go on the honor system that, hey, if you're buying this fert, you're using it for trees and shrubs or something, you're not putting it on your lawn. Either way, I don't want to get into those things. I do follow the letter of the law. I do follow it. And actually, I'll give you a great fertilizer blackout plan if you go to my website, thelawncarenut.com, and you live in Florida. I have lawn plans there for warm season lawns, and I have a Florida blackout plan that any of you could run, though, because you can keep your lawn double dark green all during the summer without a lot of nitrogen fert. But to go back to that, let's talk about Pinellas County's blackout rules. And in the blackout rules, they also give you some strict fertilizing guidelines of when you are allowed to fertilize. And so here's what they say when you are allowed to fertilize. Here's what they say. Protect our watershed. The fertilizer-free zone begins 10 feet back from the top of the slope towards any seawall or body of water. So what they are saying, the strictest county in Florida that has the strictest blackout period, that does allow some fertilizing certain times of the year outside of June to September. When you are going to fertilize, here's how you do it. The fertilizer-free zone begins 10 feet back from the top of the slope. So if you're looking at your lake behind your house, you can see where it starts to slope. Pick the top of that slope and stay 10 feet off, and you don't fertilize within 10 feet of that top of that slope. So that's the first thing I would recommend that you do. Here are some better strategies on top of that. Yes, you should keep that 10 feet back, and I honor that as well at my house. But the second thing that I do is I switched in my backyard to 100% liquid fertilizer products. I use the 1801 Green Punch and a lot of the 002 Microgreen because liquid is the smallest particle you can get. So when you spray liquid on the lawn, it's going to get into the turf. It's going to get into the soil. There is some foliar absorption, but it's going to get into the soil the quickest. It ain't got to wait on much, right? That's why we even tell you to put the 1801 Green Punch down with the hose end sprayer that delivers it with a lot of water so it gets in, and that counts as watering in. With the fact that we're telling you that your application counts as watering in means it's done, it's good, it's rain fast, you could say, it's in, it isn't running off. That is the advantage to liquid. So the first thing I would do is switch to liquids. The second thing you can do then is if you do need to keep some color out a little closer to that 10-foot range, that's where you use something like an iron product that has no nitrogen and no phosphorus in it, like the 002 Microgreen. And then during times when you know it's not going to heavy downpour, you use that out beyond and get a little closer to that slope with that iron heavy product that doesn't have the nitrogen and the phos. Again, it's liquid. It's going to absorb quick. It's going to dry quick. It's going to be rain fast quick. You're going to be smart because you're not going to apply it when you know rain is coming. And it lasts a long time anyway. So I would switch to all liquids back there. Now, if you do stay, though, with granulars for whatever reason, because you got the Jonathan Green here, then I recommend you switch to a drop spreader because it's much more easy to control the spread, so you have less likely of throwing some off target that would go into your lake or to your watershed in the back. And then again, I would recommend that maybe you try to look at doing some sort of a blackout period during your rainy season where maybe you only go with liquid iron apps and you don't do any fertilizing at all. Institute your own blackout period. Institute your own blackout strategy on your lawn. There's nothing wrong with that. It's actually fun and challenging to do that. And you only have to do it in the backyard. I do the rest of my lawn conventionally because I can keep everything hemmed in and good. Now, again, I have a full blackout that comes, and so I follow that full blackout. But even all during the year, even like right now when I'm allowed to fertilize and spray and pray and do everything I can, in the backyard, I'm going all liquid. In fact, if you subscribe to my channel, The Lawn Care Nut, I will be doing my next 1801 Green Punch app in the backyard on the Scott's Pro Vista St. Augustine grass coming up in the next week or two. So there you go, William. And again, I want to thank you for your thoughtful question. That's a good one. And again, near and dear to my heart because I care about the waterways here in Florida. If you're looking for a good song to listen to while you're mowing this weekend, look up Floridays by Jimmy Buffett. One of the ones that's probably not on the top 20 list, but should be. Just a beautiful song that talks about how beautiful it is here in Florida. And it's one of the reasons why I care so much about the ecosystems and the wildlife and all that around here, and why I am adamant about following all the rules of the Fertilizer Blackout. So very thoughtful question. And William, I challenge you, maybe you take on a little bit of a blackout plan there in your backyard, have a little bit of fun, and enjoy that lake, man. Enjoy the wildlife that it brings, enjoy the views that it brings, enjoy the Instagram photos that you can get with it, and maybe even you'll have a nice water show back there one day like I do. With that, I'm going to go on to the next one, and as always, William, let's hope for the best.